Okay, I think we're ready to start. So welcome to this session on the new hybrid search solution in Office 365. What you're going to see today, we're going to show you and tell you about, is something that's not yet in market, but it's something that we're working very hard on bringing to you by the end of 2015. We're going to do a lot of demos, so you'll be the first people to see how the new hybrid search solution works. So I hope you're as excited as we are.
Yeah.
I'm Katrine Hammervold. I'm a program manager in the FAST team in Norway. We work on creating search for SharePoint, for Exchange. We also work on the Office Graph and Delve. But this new hybrid search solution is really a team effort together with the SharePoint team in Redmond. But we've also worked very closely with and listened to our customers, our partners, services, and support. And I think it's fair to say that there aren't many people in Microsoft who've done more to help customers deliver on hybrid than my co-presenter here today. So I'm very happy to have Manas with us on the team, working on delivering a great hybrid search solution for you, and also as my co-presenter here today.
Thank you, Katrina. Hi, everyone. My name is Manas, and I work with Office 365 Escalation Services, primarily focusing on the hybrid workload. And with Katrina, we are going to show you this, this new one which is coming. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Yep. So we have a lot of ground to cover here today. This is the only session where we're going to go deep on hybrid search. So I think there's going to be something here for everyone. If you were at the SharePoint keynote and you heard Bill Baer talking about hybrid, maybe you think hybrid search is really awesome and you want to learn more about how it works. Or maybe you're one of those guys who are administrating an on-premises SharePoint deployment, and you think maybe you can spend your time and your resources in a better way than managing and scaling out search. Should be something for you here as well. Or maybe you're one of those who've seen all the new and cool stuff that we're doing in the cloud, like Delve, and you're wondering, so what about all that content I have on premises left in file shares? Will I ever be able to use Delve for that? Well, we're also going to show you that in this session. So just a quick overview of the topics that we'll go through. We're going to show you what Office 365 hybrid search is like from an end user perspective. And then we're going to talk a bit about the value that it can deliver to your organization. And then we'll go, sort of the second half of the session is going more and looking at the architecture. How does hybrid search really work? And then finally, we'll talk about some ways that you can do customization. So I hope all of you are going to stay till the bitter end. I know it's the last session of the day, because we have a lot of great demos to show you. But for anyone, I want you to have to take a few things away from you before you go, and that is that with the new hybrid search solution, you can have the search team, my colleagues, work 24/7 on managing search for you. So in the last few years, we'd worked on keeping search up and running for customers all over the world, and we're starting to do this at a large scale. We're patching, we're improving it, we're keeping it up and responding to incidents. And you can also benefit from that for your on-premises content. The other thing is that for your users, as your organization is moving towards the cloud fully or maybe only partially, your users can still have a great search experience. They can use Delve, and they don't really have to care so much about where their content is. So, over to Manas.
Thank you, Katrina. So even before we get to hybrid and even before we get to search, let's do a quick raise of hands. How many of you have been working to deploy or have deployed SharePoint 2013 hybrid?
Wow.
I have my people in the room. Okay. So SharePoint 2013 hybrid, and for those of you who have either a workload on premises and are planning to go ahead and migrate to cloud or are on the migration phase to the cloud right now? Great. So what we would talk about today is what exists today With this new feature which comes in, what are some of the things which you should immediately look at, and how this kind of shows that whenever we have spoken and whenever I have gone back to Katrina with your ask and voice, have they listened to it? So let's look at that being an answer towards the end of this session. So the first thing which comes up for the set of people who have been right now thinking about investing into hybrid or moving into Office 365 in their roadmap is what is hybrid search and what's in it for me. So hybrid search makes finding content easier wherever the content lives. As today, if you have already migrated some of your workloads to cloud or are on the verge of migrating, your existing on-premises environment still holds some of the data which your end users would want to look at, right? So hybrid brings in that seamless experience for your end users, and based on whatever rights they have, based on what they can look up for, they would still continue to look at those documents irrespective of whether they reside. So a question always comes up, like, what's in it on the new hybrid solution? So as of today, for those of you who just told me saying you have been investing into SharePoint 2013 hybrid workloads, this was a new feature which was introduced in 2013, right? All of us looked into and deployed it. There were certain things which we had to do it in a way where all of us thought that, okay, it would have been done in a better way. So in the SharePoint 2013, we introduced this search, or the hybrid search, which apparently relied on query federation. We had indexes on their own locations, which means if you have a SharePoint 2013 index on-prem, that resided on-prem, and if you had the SharePoint Online indexes in SharePoint Online, what we used to do is we used to send a query, and then we used to retrieve results, and they were displayed in their own result verticals, right? One for online, one for on-prem. The key thing to that was all of this infrastructure still was needed to be hosted in a SharePoint on-premises environment. Now, before even we move further, let's actually look into how does this new solution end user experience looks like, okay? And I'm going to hand over to Katrina to go ahead and show a demo of the user experience.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is an environment where we have that we're running in Office 365, so it's a live environment. Anything can happen. So that's sort of the online part, and then there's also an on-premises part, which is running in Azure. So on-premises could really be anywhere. I mean, it could be behind your firewall, or it could be in Azure. The other thing that I want to call out is that all the queries that I'm doing in this demo, are all coming sort of through the online search index. There's no search index whatsoever on premises. So if you can switch to the...
Yes,
oh, you've already switched to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say I'm working in support in Contoso. I've been working there for a number of years. So I've created content and looked at content in many different places. Over the years, we've used file shares, then SharePoint 2010. Now there's some sites on SharePoint 2013. And recently, Contoso has also started adopting OneDrive for Business in the cloud. And they've migrated some sites. So it's very confusing for me as a user to know where I'm going to find all this content. So since I've started using Office 365, I'm going to try to do a query here. I'm working on a support case for XT1000. So let's see what happens if I search for that. So now this is going against the online SharePoint Online index. And what I can see now is there's a support forum that's online. There's some content from my OneDrive. And then there's also a lot of marketing material. So not content that's very relevant for what I'm looking for today. But Contoso have decided to start to try out the new hybrid search solution. So we're now piloting this new everything search vertical. So let's see if I go there and do the same query. Okay, it should be returning soon. Yep.
Yeah.
Now what I see is I still see the content that was in online from the support forum, but I also see content from SharePoint 2010 from my support team site. If we scroll down, there's also content here from SharePoint 2013. It's actually, IE is giving me a warning here because I'm going from a secure connection online to HTTP on premises, so I'm just going to reload that. If you go back down here, you can see this document from 2013. You can see that we can also get WAC previews for content from on-premises, if we've set that up. The other thing we have is even documents from file shares. So I'm going to get back and show you how those documents can show up in Delve later on. The refiners that we have here, they just work across the whole result set. Since the whole result set is in Office 365, they work across. I could also refine on content that I've created. So again, I'm seeing content from 2010, from online, and file shares. So there's a lot of interesting content in this 2010 support site. So I'm going to go to that document library directly. So now I can, since Contoso has implemented single sign-on, I can move seamlessly between SharePoint Online and between my on-premises environment. So I'm logged into both places right now. So this is the document library in 2010. I'm sure a lot of you recognize the look. So there's a lot of documents here, so I'm going to search for XT1000 in this document library. And what that's going to do is that's going to go against SharePoint Online to look for the search results. And we'll explain to you a bit later how that works. But it only, right now, because I'm searching within the scope of a site, it only returns results that are relevant for that site. So the searching from a document library in 2010 and 2013 is still possible using the new hybrid search solution. Just to prove to you that there's no local search index, I can do the same query in the Enterprise Search Center in 2010. So I think this is probably going to be the first time that you see SharePoint Online documents in your 2010 Enterprise Search Center. I can also use the refiners here if I want to. Yeah. Thank you. Not such a great search experience, but at least they show up. I can even use the refiners. So if you look here, so these are I've refined on documents that I created from the 2010 Enterprise Search Center. And if we look over in the SharePoint Online search experience, it's exactly the same documents. So that's pretty cool. So I've also started using Delve as well as OneDrive in Office 365. And since I don't really have time to read all these documents right now, I want to save them for later. So if I go to my Delve page, here you can see this is the me page in Delve. This page basically shows you documents that you have created yourself, ordered by recency. So if I scroll down here, you can see some documents from SharePoint 2013, a couple of documents here, as well as something from my OneDrive. So now we're really bringing together all the content, no matter where it lives, into one experience also in Delve. I've created a board. Boards are something that are coming to Delve. You may have attended one of those sessions. I've created a board with some documents from online and from on-premises. And I can add some more documents here if I want to. Searching in Delve basically also searches against the search index in Office 365. So here you can see a document from a file share. If I scroll down here, there's some more documents from this 2010 support site. So I can just add those to the same board. And then if I go back to the board, I can see the new documents that I've added. So that's basically the sort of the end user experience that you get with hybrid search. Can you switch back to the, yeah. Thank you. So just to, just use the clicker here. Yeah. So just to summarize quickly, I can search from anywhere where I happen to be working. So I don't have to go necessarily to one particular place in order to search, but you can just sort of meet users in the context that they're at. I can use enterprise search. I can use Delve. And the thing I wanted to call out is that I showed you that previews are working. I can navigate to the document library. This is all because I'm signed in to both places. So if I'm not on the corporate network, let's say I'm searching from home, and I'm not on VPN, I'm still able to go to SharePoint Online and search and find content. And for example, things like adding something to a board in Delve would work just fine. But if I want to actually access the content, I need to be logged in. And that's basically just respecting the normal security setup that you have in your organization. If you're not on the corporate network, you can't access files on the corporate network. So this is all great news for the users. So what about the organizational value of hybrid search? We're just going to walk through Contoso sort of evolution here, where they started out. It's pretty typical of many companies, I think. People say they still have a lot of content in file shares. It's not always easy to change people's habits. They also have different versions of SharePoint. Here you have some 2010 and some 2013. They've deployed SharePoint 2013, and they're using that for search. So everything is indexed in 2013. And what we typically see is that somebody who has, let's say you have 4 application servers for content, you typically tend to have twice as many application servers for search, sometimes even more. In the case of Contoso here, they also index data in file shares. So they need even more search servers. So this is kind of excluding other sort of common servers. I'm just focusing on content and search. And as I said, Contoso has adopted OneDrive, which means that they're getting a lot of storage in SharePoint Online, 1 terabyte per user. So that's all great. And then they've migrated one site or a couple of sites to SharePoint Online. So they could reduce their number of content servers by maybe 1 in this case. So it's not a great saving in terms of managing your on-premises infrastructure. But now let's look at what happens when they deploy hybrid search. So you notice here that the SharePoint 2013 search farm is gone. As I told you in the demo, there's no local search index. Instead, they have deployed this new version or update to SharePoint that's coming in 2013 as an update to 2013, which we call the Cloud Search Service application. And we're going to tell you more about how that works later on. But basically, it only does the crawling and querying if you're querying from on-premises. So now, Contoso could reduce the number of application servers down to 5. So that's a huge saving, probably about 60 to 70% savings. So to summarize, we've moved a very expensive workload to the cloud, and you now have the search team, me and my colleagues in Norway and in Redmond managing search for you. And we brought together collaboration on premises and in the cloud. And all of this happened with not a big impact to the end users and without any upgrades to existing SharePoint deployments. One more thing that I wanted to call out is that there are other workloads that depend on search that can also benefit from this. So both data loss prevention and e-discovery, they are running on top of search. So when you're searching for sensitive content, you're searching against the search index. So obviously, if you have your on-premises content in the search index in Office 365, that means you can also do sensitive searching for example, sensitive data types. So I'm sure the compliance team will come with more updates around this later. So now we're going to tell you a little bit more about how it all works.
Thank you. So we just took a look into the awesome user experience which you would have once this is enabled, right? So how does this all work behind the scene? Let's kind of go ahead and look into architecture, things like how do you set it up, and all of those. So I'm going to say what we would now focus on is what is the prerequisites for your organization or you when you are trying to go ahead and deploy this. We're going to look into the cloud search service application from a configuration standpoint, the crawling architecture. We're going to look at security and identity. Of course, all of us knows that that's the key when we are trying to look for search or anything which is related to delve or rendering of data. The best part, what happens to SharePoint 2013 hybrid? There's a story there we're going to look at. And the query flow. So the first thing which comes up is prerequisites for using the Office 365 new hybrid search model, which Katrina has been talking about. You need an Office 365 subscription. You need to obviously have a SharePoint on-prem, and the users should be synchronized from on-premises to Office 365 Azure AD, and the licenses needs to be, of course, assigned to them. Directory synchronization or Azure AD sync can be leveraged to go ahead and synchronize the users and groups. We support all of the content sources that is supported today in SharePoint 2013, SharePoint 2007, 2010, 2013, file shares, and there is a small thing out there, BCS connectors. We're going to talk about it towards the end. Okay. Now, with that, what happens to the SharePoint 2013 hybrid workload? All of this, guys, which we spoke about, would come back to you in SharePoint 2013 as a new feature update by the end of this year, which means SharePoint 2013 is going to get all of these features, hopefully by end of this year, and we should be able to leverage these features right with what we have in SharePoint 2013 query model. Great, thank you. So when we configured SharePoint 2013 hybrid search, there were specific prerequisites which we looked at from reverse proxy and all of those standpoint. Here, as we go further down the configuration aspects, the only thing which you would need from a inbound hybrid query model, like when you query from SharePoint Online, is a reverse proxy is only required if you want to show the WAC previews or the document previews that Katrina was showing you some time back. Okay, so the reverse proxy requirement is only from that aspect, nothing else. And now, with that, let's take a look into the cloud search service application. What is it? How do we configure it? And the details around that. So before we get to and take a first look at this search service application, what is it that is required after you install SharePoint 16? How do you create that search service application? Yes?
Let me guess. Do you have to run 2,000 lines of PowerShell?
No, sorry, 2,200 lines of PowerShell code.
Oh, okay.
And that's required for you to configure it. I'm joking. So configuration and creation is easy. All you need to do is go to your central admin, create a new search service application. It's embedded in the product UI creation. You will still be able to leverage the PowerShell creation of search service application and scale out your topology like you do today and have multiple boxes in the farm host different search topologies for you. So creation remains the same as you do today. So that's the reason why I would not show you creating it. However, once you create the search service application, by default, it does not connect to your Office 365 environment, right? Because when you create it, it doesn't know which Office 365 environment to connect to. So in order to go ahead and connect to it, you would be executing something called an onboarding script. As of today, the onboarding script just needs your global admin credentials for it to authenticate against the Azure AD. So when you run that script, it will prompt you saying, authenticate and prove that you are indeed the user who should write back these updates. And after that, it just configures everything for you. Now, when I say everything, it ensures that there is a trust with Azure ACS, which is the trust broker for these connections so that it goes ahead and gets secure environment from where this crawl is being done. It ensures that you actually have authenticated users coming in and going ahead and getting such results. So all of this are done in the background automatically with this script. So where is this script available? As of now, we have this as a PowerShell script which you can run as it makes out to, and when you guys would be texting it, I think when we would deliver this, we would document what needs to be done. It's right there as a PowerShell now, but we should have a better format of it, hopefully, by the time it gets out to you. So that's the only configuration which is required in order for you to integrate the search service application with Office 365. Now,
does that mean?
Sorry?
Does that mean that you're ready to start crawling when all of this is done?
We are almost ready to go ahead and start crawling. I just want to bring in one other and re-emphasize on one other aspect which you mentioned. She showed us SharePoint 2010, and you go to SharePoint 2010 and you search for a document, and the site search works, and you are also able to see results from SharePoint Online. How does that work? So that part is just an additional configuration, because SharePoint 2010 would be a different farm than SharePoint 2013, right? So when you are done with this configuration, which I told you, creating of search service application from central admin or PowerShell, you have to just publish the search service application in 2016. I'm so used to saying 2013 because I don't believe that we are doing this right away. So excuse me for that. So when you do that in SharePoint 2016, and of course by the end of the year in 2013, you would actually go back and publish the search service application and consume it from SharePoint 2010. No different steps than you do consuming publishing today, just as is. That's required, and you would get to see search results from SharePoint 2010, what Katrina just showed us. There was a question.
2010, does it need to run claims or classic?
It needs to run claims.
Okay.
Yes. So that, because it's still talking to a claim server.
So the question was whether it needs to run claims or classic. Yeah.
Yes, it's claims.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll take, we're happy to take loads of questions afterwards too.
Yes. So I just mentioned that it's easy to go ahead and create that, and all of you agree with me on that, right? Else I'd have got a question saying, no, it's tough. So you create it from central admin UI. So when you create that search service application, what's so very special about it, okay? It's just the same search service application with the additional attributes. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get this search service application in a variable. Okay, and look into the properties of it. Hopefully you should be able to see it. I'll just use a zoom it to. So if you see here, it's the same set of index component. You have all of the components which we have today. But when you go ahead and do the variable, when I just go ahead and do a dot properties for it, I would be able to see a couple of additional attributes, which as of today is true, which is why the demo is working, but may see a few changes before it goes out to, and all of you test it. But apparently those changes are embedded in the creation from when you do it from central administration. So something which is worth calling out here is when I go back to, this is the search service application, the first look of it, okay, like how it looks as of today. Same search application topology. I have everything configured in one box in Azure. So what's important to understand here, though, when Katrina was talking about the Contoso domain, is when we look back at this topology, the only thing which we are going to use is definitely the crawler, which means if you are trying to go out and crawl a large corpus, you scale out your crawler accordingly. And query. But when we look at query, the query is only going to be for those users who are querying from SharePoint on-prem to and get to see results from SharePoint Online. Because the beauty of this is when Katrina was showing the query from SharePoint Online, we were using the QPC or the query processing component from SharePoint Online part of it, which means you might not have to invest on, and those numbers which you said were indeed reality in terms of deployment. So with that, I just want to show you one other thing before we move to the rest of this. When I have run the onboarding script, okay? what it does, it creates an Azure Access Control Services proxy on your on-premises part. And the onboarding script actually goes back and just goes ahead and establishes a trust with Office 365 itself, with that Azure SS proxy to be your trust broker, and ensures that there is a secure communication going on. So we are not going to go ahead and run the onboarding script at this point of time, but I'm trying to get this Azure, the service application proxy into a variable. I'm going to show you certain properties. So if you see here, we are seeing three things here, okay? One is the ACS, and if I could zoom it effectively. Yes. We're seeing ACS, which is our Azure Access Control Services proxy, which has been created on-premises and would be brokeraging the connection between SharePoint Online and SharePoint On-Prem. We're seeing a certificate thumbprint and a metadata endpoint URL. Now, accounts.accesscontrol.windows.net with that GUID is what we have established the trust with. Who does all of this? This is this is when you have run the onboarding script and it configures everything in the background part of it. Okay, with that, I showed you already that from a look and feel wise, it's just the same search service application as of today.
Yeah, I can't say we changed any single lines of codes in it, so
yes,
in the UI.
Okay, so
are we ready to start crawling now?
Yes.
Okay, then let me try to upload a document so we can see if we can make it searchable. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. So I'm going to upload a document just from my desktop here. We'll pick this one, Ignite 2015. So that's uploading to a document library in 2013. And of course, to prove to you that we're not cheating, I will try to search for Ignite. No results.
Fantastic.
Okay. So Namanas, can you please start the crawl?
Okay. So at this stage, what we're trying to do is we have a document uploaded in SharePoint 2013 on-prem. I'm going back to my search service application, and this is a content source which just goes ahead and does the crawl. What I'm going to do before I start a crawl is Katrina goes and explains the crawl architecture. Okay, I'm going to start Fiddler so that once she explains everything, it's so nice to look at those things back in the logs, right? Just to revalidate it. I'm running Fiddler in the background. And I'm starting, okay.
Can they see it? No, yeah, there you go.
You can see it, right now?
Yeah.
Every information is gone from that. And I'm starting a full crawl just to ensure we have ample data to show you, even though we have uploaded a document in terms of how the architecture ties up and associates to what she is going to explain over that.
Okay, so let me just walk you, while that crawl is running, let me walk you through what actually is happening behind the scenes. I think we need to switch to
It's switched.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
That's yours, I think.
Yeah, it will come now.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so this is quite a simple high-level overview of the architecture for crawling. So I'm not going to talk much about the directory synchronization. That's sort of common for any hybrid scenario, so we don't need to go into detail on that. But we have synchronized the users on premises into Azure Active Directory. Then what happens is when Manas started the crawl here, the crawler is obviously going back to the content sources on premises, in this case 2013, downloads the content, and then it parses the content. So all iFilters, all the parsers that you see normally in 2013 are now running inside the crawler. So that's a change. And it's extracting all the metadata and text that we need in order to build the index. And what we're not doing is taking your content and sort of putting it in Office 365. We're taking the metadata. And we're encrypting it. So as part of the onboarding process, there was a public key that was downloaded. So the crawler encrypts the documents and then sends them over a secure connection to Office 365. So once that batch of items comes in, They're put on a queue. And then we also store a copy of the parsed content. And I'll get back to why we do that in a bit. After that, it basically goes through content processing. Exactly the same content processing that we do for online content, and it's pretty much similar to what you had in SharePoint 2013. The only extra step that we do is to take a look at the item and see, okay, who can access this item? Because right now, the access control list is referring to on-premises identities. And then we map those to online identities. And Manas will explain in more detail how that happens. So now we're ready to put the item in the search index. And by now, it pretty much looks exactly like any other item that was crawled online. And that's why search kind of just magically works. After you've indexed something, don't quote me on that. But you don't have to do any configuration of the search center in SharePoint Online in order to start seeing the search results. Okay, I was going to mention, just before we go over, why we're storing this copy of the parsed content. And that's basically because sometimes we have to do operations on content on the search index in the cloud. It may be that we have to rebalance farms, maybe move tenant from one farm to another in the same region, of course. And we can't just rip out a part of the search index and put it over here. We have to rebuild it from the metadata, from the text. And so instead of having to send the admin on premises an email and saying, please, can you go and re-index your content, because we need to do some kind of operations on it, we already have that copy of the parsed content. And then we can go and do all the stuff that we need to do on that copy. So that search should always be working for your users. OK, I think we're ready to go back and see.
We are. Okay.
So is my document searchable now?
It definitely should be searchable. While that was not me kind of sounding confused, but that was me like, it's definitely going to be searchable, but that accent thing comes in, so. Even before I get into that, okay. What you see on the screen right now is it's scrolling. I was taking a couple of notes when she was telling that, okay, and you'd not be able to see it though, but it's here. So she said, the crawler goes ahead and submits in batches, right? She says it encrypts it. Okay, and then it's actually the details which is being done from when the crawler retrieves the thing. So let's go back and look into, before you try to search it, because the crawling is done.
But maybe you want to check in the crawl log and see if there were any errors. That's
yes.
possible.
Let's go ahead and look into crawl logs. Crawl logs. Okay, I thought I was not blind, but yeah. Okay, SharePoint 2013, I have no errors. Okay, I have warnings. Let's click on those because it's interesting to see the bad things first and then the good ones. So it's because some of the contents are set to no index attribute set on them, so we didn't index them, which means we do honor if there is no crawl attribute set on the document. If we go back to crawl logs, then we did see the success for the rest of the things, which means ideally Katrina should be able to go back and search for the content. But before that, I wanted to show you what was there in the logs.
Just keep the suspense up.
Yeah. And take a look at the logs actually in real time and see if those things can be identified from within the logs. So what we see here is there is a tunnel made to this URL, which is the first connection after when we initiated the crawler. I do see a batch. Okay. So first of all, let's take a quick look into this. What you see here, she was saying encrypted data going over. What we see exactly is the same information out here. It's an encrypted data where we see there is a certificate exchange with a certificate issuer, and the information which is there is what's the validity, what's the thumbprint, okay, which has been taken care of when we have actually gone ahead and set the onboarding script. She said that we do submit, the crawler goes ahead and submits in batches. Well, here are the set of batches which we see here. okay, which has been sent over, which means if I go here and look into any random of them, here is the site data.asmx call, which means here is where we have gone back and requested data from the on-premises SharePoint 2013 environment, we as in crawler. And after that, we have gone ahead and set a tunnel, and we have gone ahead and submitted the data in a batch, right? Which is what the repetition of it, which we see here. If you open this in Notepad, you should be able to go ahead and see the entire communication, which means that indeed it went ahead and followed the set of what we were seeing in the crawl architecture. Now, what is important here to see is once we have submitted a batch, or once we have gone ahead and seen that the crawler has submitted a batch, it actually has sent over an acknowledgement, which is pretty much confirmation that it's a successful submit, which is pretty handy when you are trying to go out and look into items which are not returning in the search results, even though everything has permissions and all those things set. And now my tone changes and says, yes, you will be able to search it.
Okay, can you switch over?
Yeah.
Okay, so back to my search page. Let's see what happens.
If it doesn't, I'll hide somewhere.
Yay, we
There
did
you
it.
go.
One more. But we're even more daring, aren't we, Manas?
Yes.
We don't stop there. Let's go back to my Delve page, and let's see if the document appears there as well. Hey, here we go. This is my document, and it's now in the cloud. Okay, now I almost forgot where we were.
Yes. Okay. And there is something which I want to check out, though.
Okay.
Before you move forward on this. So you are able to search for the document, right? Which means I'm in the cloud. You would have some cool new features which you might be working on for next year or next few months. I want to take a look at that document too. Okay. Give me a minute. Just let me search for it before we move forward. And from my account, coming back to my same demo environment, I'll quickly take a login. And what was the document called again?
You can search for Ignite.
Okay.
Example.
I will search for Ignite. I go back to everything. You didn't give me permissions?
Nope.
Okay. So the next topic we are going to focus on is the security trimming and how do we honor it. Okay. That's because something which I would want to call out here is the account with which I am logged in, I have more powers than she has on the online environment. She can, deprive me from giving permissions on hard documents. I'm a global admin on the tenant, right? But the document ACL, as she was talking about, gets built right from when the user has permissions, which means that's honored. And if I'm not given a permission, I don't see the document. So with that, our next topic, and which is security and identity. So what we just saw as a demo is only the right set of users who has access to documents like in on-prem today. The crawler goes ahead and ensures that it looks into, does a match, and then returns the set of document. So how does this all happen behind the scene? Directory synchronization, either by dir sync or AAD sync, is the guy who makes the user synchronization happen. So in this case, and of course here, I was thinking of I will go ahead and get in my CEO, Bob Fox, but I thought, okay, let's take a different account and look into one of the other users who is lesser privileged, okay? So Jaden has a on-premises environment, is a user in the on-premises Active Directory. We have synchronized the user. What we do is, Jaden is corp/Jaden in on-prem. The UPN for the user is jaden@corp.hybridsearch.com. And when I'm saying this, I'm looking at Sesha, who is going to go ahead and bring this change shortly. If you have questions more on this, I will point it to Sesha, but I don't wanted to just go ahead and talk about it. So this was something which me and Neil Hodgkinson sitting over there, we were actually looking into a scenario when your on-premises UPN doesn't match your online UPN. Okay? And this is when we reached out to Sesha for asking for help. So what we do is, in this feature, in this SharePoint 16, we bring it out of the box. What happens is your on-premises security identifier of the user gets mapped to something called MS Online on-premises security identifier in the Azure AD, okay, and contains the value of on-premises SID for the user, which is probably the strongest identity of a user in the entire life cycle of this user. Okay. Security principles definitely are managed on premises and synchronized to cloud using the DERSing tool. The object now mirrors the identity of the user in on-prem, which means whatever is the end user experience which we just saw in Delve or SharePoint 2010 on-prem or online is coming in because of the identity match. All of these items which we saw are indexed in Office 365, and the access control entries are looked up in the cloud directory services, right? User SIDs or SIDs are mapped to PUIDs in online, okay? Group SIDs, which are there, are mapped to object IDs. There is something which I want to explicitly call out here. Everyone and authenticated users are mapped to a group, which you guys are already familiar with in online, called everyone except external users. Now, what does that mean? If you have a distribution list on-prem, okay, and you are wondering why the users within the distribution list are not seeing any search results, you know why you are not seeing it, because it would not have a SID value which can get mapped to something in Azure AD in online. So, just to take a look at the summary, who you are specifically, like what we saw in the demo, gets determined when the documents can search for, right? What documents I will be able to look up gets determined with this. If you get a document result, if you get a result in your, where you see a document in online, it is because you have access to that document in on-premises. And if you are trying to go ahead and work on a scenario where somebody says, when I log into the online environment, I'm seeing additional documents, it's great to come back to on-prem and see if you can search for it in the portal. Maybe you are getting permission because of a group, NT-authority/authenticated users with read added to your site, right, in on-prem. And of course, you must be logged into on-premises in order to go ahead and access the documents, which was key from when Katrina was showing about the single sign-on part. With that, I'm going to hand over to Katrina to talk about the query model now.
Yes. So this explains a little bit how we were able to search online and how we were able to search from on-premises. So let's say that I'm logged into SharePoint Online. My user token now contains my online identities. So it contains the PUID for my user. And it also contains the IDs for all the groups that I am a member of. So that happens when I sign into Office 365. So if I do a query there, that's obviously going to match against the search index. But what happens if you're on premises and you're not even signed in to Office 365? How are you able to get back search results? Well, what happens, so Manas explained earlier that we've set up this 2010, or you can do it with 2013, to consume the cloud SSA as a remote SSA. And then we have set up query federation with only one result source from that cloud SSA against SharePoint Online. So what happens then when Jaden here issues a query is her on-premises claims get sent over sort of via the cloud SSA into SharePoint Online, and there her user token is rehydrated. So now we're adding the online identifiers and the online group, the online identifiers for the groups. And based on that, we can return all the search results that she has access to. So that's basically how query works. Why isn't this working? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But then there are, I'm sure, customers out there who are saying, okay, I can't even index all of my content into Office 365. It's just a reality because of, for different regulatory reasons, perhaps. So it's still possible to combine the two hybrid search approaches. So let's say you want to index everything that you can into Office 365. You could still keep a local index for the content that you need to keep on premises. That's maybe a high business impact. So you could have a setup where, for example, from this one site collection on premises, I needed to access both the high business impact content that's indexed locally and content from Office 365. So now you can just do the normal hybrid query federation that you did before. So we're not taking anything away, we're just adding a new way of doing hybrid. So now let's move on to the next, and thank you. Let's move to the next sort of section, the final one, and that's customization. And I'm sure there are a lot of, especially our partners out there who are coming to us talking about customization, what can we do, what can't we do. There's probably also customers who have customizations on premises. So with hybrid search, or with, I think in general with Office 365, we are kind of simplifying things. So we're not going to give you all the customization options that you had on premises, but we're also maybe making your lives easier. So the thing that's really important to remember with hybrid, now we've seen that we're doing crawling on premises, and then search is happening online. So it follows that any crawl configuration has to happen on premises, like you're setting up your content sources, your crawl rules, etc. And any search configuration or customization has to happen in SharePoint Online. That's just how it is with this solution. So for example, let's take one example, schema, search schema. Your search schema is going to be in Office 365, and that's where you can change it. You can still add managed properties, but what's going to come in from on-premises is just all your crawled properties. So if you want to do map a crawl property to a managed property, you have to do that in SharePoint Online. So let's take a quick look at what's sort of supported and not supported based on this architecture. So on premises, because we're doing parsing, it's still possible to install a custom iFilter. So if you have a format, some file format that you have on premises and you're not moving into the cloud, you can still install a custom iFilter and have that parsed. We also support BCS connectors, and we're working with a number of partners on validating their existing partner connectors with the new Cloud SSA solution. What is not supported, however, is indexing content that requires custom security trimming. And that's simply because we don't, at least not now, we don't have custom security trimming in Office 365. So basically, your content has to be ACL to users that are in AD, and the security model sort of has to map to allow and deny claims. So if we're looking on the cloud side, in terms of, I mentioned search schema. You can do tenant-level schema mapping, but because your site collections are still on premises, they don't exist as objects in Office 365, so you can't go and do a customized schema at a site collection level. All your customizations have to happen at a tenant level. You can still set up query rules and result sources for specific search centers. So it's just fine to create a new search center and customize that, and maybe only search for on-premises content in that search center. And I'll show you how you can do that kind of customization. So I think I'm going to move on to the next slide and just talk about this new managed property that we're introducing. So when we're adding all this extra content into the index, it's quite useful to be able to tell that these items came from on-premises versus the items that were indexed from SharePoint Online. So we've added a new property called isExternalContent. And this property is just a Boolean property, and it's always set to 1 for your external or for your on-premises content. So you can use this property. You don't have to use it, but if you want to use it, you can, for example, use it in query rules or to build result sources. And I'll show you an example of that. First, I'll just go through the slides. So if you noticed when I was doing the demo, there were 3 search verticals. One called SharePoint Online, and then Everything, and then a third one called Support Search. Well, the first SharePoint Online search vertical is actually a custom search vertical that I created. And the way I created it is by using this isExternalContent property. And I said, only search for content that doesn't have isExternalContent set to 1. So that basically just limits the search results to only online search results. And that can actually be a great way of kind of rolling out hybrid search in a controlled way. You could take your production tenant, you could make the default search center go use this customization, and then your users wouldn't see the new hybrid search results until you chose to change that. The everything search vertical is actually just the default search that you get in SharePoint Online. It just searches everything, so anything that's in the index, regardless of what kind of properties it has. So that's what you'd see out of the box if you didn't do any customization. And the third example here is this support search vertical. So in order to make content even more relevant for example, support people, if you already know what kind of sites they need to look for content in, it's possible to use, you could use a path restriction to add like a filter on which sites you want results from. So in this case, I said, okay, I want 2010 results from the support site. I want some content from file shares. And I want content from the online support forum. So I can quickly show you, if you go back to my search center here.
Yeah, you should be on in a minute.
Yeah. So if I go to the SharePoint Online search vertical first, you can see here, I can search for star, our favorite query. Here you can see all the results are from online. And if I try to search for on-premises content here, let's see. If I try to search for external content, it's not going to return anything because the result source is filtering out those search results. Whereas if I now click on the everything search vertical, it's going to search in everything, but it's going to only return me the on-premises content. And then finally, if I go to the support search vertical here, and I just change the query, so now it's only returning results from on-premises. If I change the query here, it just shows me results from these 3 result sources. Okay. You can go back to the presentation. Yeah. So we're getting close to the end. We'll have lots of time for questions afterwards. So how can you get started with this? As I said, we're still working on building this. As you can see, a lot of stuff is working already. I think it's mainly in terms of sort of readiness and rolling it out. We still have a bit of work to do, and obviously want to improve our error messages and make sure that Manas can support all of you when you deploy hybrid search. Yeah. So what's happening right now is that MSIT, our internal search department, are rolling out hybrid search. They told me a couple of days ago that they had more than 20 million, that they crawled more than 20 million items. So that's great. MSIT, as you know, Microsoft recently acquired Nokia. And Nokia are over in Finland, and they're also doing hybrid search, but they're crawling them in 2 separate places. And I didn't mention that before, but that's something that I want to call out, is that you can deploy cloud SSAs in different geographical locations, crawl your content locally, and it's all going to go into the same search index. So no more crawling across, your poor network. You can just deploy it where the content lives. So that was just a side effect. We didn't even think of that when we made it, but
yes.
Apparently it's popular.
Yeah, it is.
No, just joking. We also have an ongoing TAP program with some customers, a handful of customers, handful of partners. I can see Jeff Reed in the audience here. He just told me that they started crawling. So you can ask him how that's going. So we hope to get, as we get more feedback from our TAP customers and as we build out sort of on the readiness side, our goal is definitely to be able to ship this by the end of the year. And of course, it's also going to be available when 2016 ships.
Yes. Just one thing which I wanted to add here, if there was a question around the TAP program part of it, we have Bob Fox and Brian Lewis out there you guys could talk to, you guys could want to talk to them and get more information.
So finally, it would be great to see another raise of hands for us to learn whether you think that the new hybrid search solution is something that you'd consider deploying. Great.
You should clap though.
Yes. I see I'm sure there are still people who still have questions or you have some concerns. And we're also happy to hear those, obviously. So if you have any more questions afterwards and you don't have a chance to ask them now, you can ask on the Yammer site, use the session code. And then just stay tuned for hybrid search coming to SharePoint 2013. Thank you.
Thank you.